Support for the Dice Tower comes from listeners like you and from the Op, also known as USAopoly. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 653.
N is for no!
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Geoff has some betting advice, and a special guest shares how our games could have a lasting benefit beyond what we might expect. Plus, we answer questions about what makes us turn to older games, and whether I force my kids to play with me. And we finish off the show with our top 10 games that start with the letter N. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the nasty Nork of board gaming, Tom Vassell.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I didn't expect you to. Nasty Nork is the villain from the first Spyro the Dragon game, but I just like it because it's not spelled with N's at the beginning. It's Nasty Nork, but it's spelled Ganasty Gnork.
It does make you want to go and smack some of the people who've made these words initially. My wife listens to my rant every year. My son is learning to read. He's in kindergarten.
Sure.
And this is the last time. And, he's telling me about these special sounds. And I'm like, why do these special sounds exist? Why do I have to teach him that CK says K? Why does duck have CK at the end? Come on. And then I go off and then Lara just says, and nods. Yeah. But, folks, welcome to the Dice Tower. And welcome to, episode 653. We're getting pretty close to 666, Eric.
Oh, boy.
What is going on here?
Yeah.
We'll make that especially interesting. No, I'm kidding.
I would love to know what you had planned for that.
I have nothing planned for that. Okay. All right. I will say this, folks. We know that probably there might be a few more people listening to our podcast than normal because a lot of people have time. Although some people who had long commutes aren't listening to our podcast.
That's true.
So you're probably listening to this in 2021, and let me tell you, I hope you're having a great year.
I hope so.
But if you are listening to our podcast now, I like to encourage you every single night while we are all stuck inside, we're doing a Dice Tower daily chat at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The only exception to that is every other Wednesday. We still do it. We just call it Dice Tower Tonight. And that's Eric and Crystal.
Yes, I had a number of people on last night's episode of Dice Tower Tonight with Crystal Pisano and me. And a lot of people popped on because they're used to the 9 p.m. Dice Tower chat. And a bunch of people popped on going, what's this? Why are they calling it something different? Wait, it's Eric and Crystal tonight? And, they were very confused. So, yes, every other Wednesday, Dice Tower Tonight on the YouTubes. We were doing that well before everyone was staying at home. But now it's every night that you can hang out with Dice people.
Right. So we hope you come and enjoy that. And, of course, you can jump in on our Facebook group. I am definitely wielding a stick of keep the negative stuff out.
Sure.
And on our Board Game Geek forums. So welcome there. So games. Today is my day. I think.
Your day.
I might be wrong, Eric, but if looking at my games, I'm pretty sure you talked about all three of these in the past. Am I correct?
I have played all three of these games, yes.
Okay, well, fine. So what last time Eric talked about games that he finally played after me talking about them. Mm-hmm. It's me to talk about games that I played after Eric talking about them.
I'm looking forward to hearing what you say.
So I'm going to go I'm going to do them from order from my least favorite to favorite, but I'm doing that. Basically, I like them all, so it's not a least favorite. But
okay,
the one I like
alert.
more than the other three. So the first one, well, only for you. So the first one is Yukon Airways. This is a game in which I wouldn't know how to describe it to people. I mean, you're taking people and flying them around in the Yukon, but you're doing so almost like an area control. It's like a very slow area control game. Or maybe pick up and deliver. And that's not a good word for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. It's sort of a limited pick up and deliver. But okay, yeah.
Okay, I guess it's pick up and deliver. But each round of this game, you're going to draft one die or multiple dice. Depending on which one you pick, You will get to then fly these different colored dice to different areas of the Yukon. The farther away you fly them, the more money you get, and in this game, money's points. Mm-hmm. And that's basically the general concept of the game, but in the middle of that, you need to get fuel to get them to these different spots. You'll start with a small amount of fuel. You want to get more fuel. You also need cards to get them to spots. You start with a few cards. You want to get more cards. And so what this game has is there are several ways over the course of this game to upgrade. And you can upgrade dials that give you bonuses per turn, like one dial lets you draw. It tells you how many cards you draw at the end of your turn. So you start by drawing 3, but you can make it 4, 5, 6, Another dial gives you extra gas. There's also little toggle switches, which are really bad component-wise, and I'll be fixing that in my game. I mean, it's really bad. I think I would have thrown them away.
Really?
The pieces, because they just look like the extra stuff you punch out of cardboard.
Oh, yeah, like you didn't realize that they were important.
No, I didn't not realize that. I wasn't the one who punched out the game. I'm just saying that when I pulled them out, I was like, this is an actual piece? It's really weird because the rest of the game, the components are fine. Anyhow, and you toggle these switches and you get special abilities on them. There is no way you can toggle all your switches. There's no way you can up all your dials.
Right.
It's not possible. So you have a ton of different things that you can do each game, and you can try to pick, do I want to try to get a lot of gas this game? There's one dial that just gives you a ton of points at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you want to do. It's called the Christmas bonus. Wait till Christmas to get your money.
Yes.
And so I like it. I think it's a little bit, what's a good word for this? It feels one way. It feels like games are going to always point you in the same direction. Yes, you have a lot of different ways to get there, but I don't know that the game's going to feel tremendously different from one game to the next. You always have to go to the close airports first. You can't get to those farther airports.
Right.
And then slowly build your way out to the farther airports. And there's a little bit of dice drafting, which is interesting. And there's a little bit, the smallest bit of take that, because you can take dice somebody else once and deliver first. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, the most interesting thing is about the upgrades. And if you like that idea, you'll like Yukon Airways.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one as well. I liked the planning, too, because those passengers, they're cubes that go out on the map at the beginning of the game, and that doesn't change. People start picking them up and delivering those passengers where they need to go, but then, the ones that are out farther are still out there from the beginning, so you can plan for those routes later on. It becomes almost a puzzle. How do I get to those far-flung airports and have enough money or fuel to get there in the first place?
Sure. I don't disagree on that premise, but I don't know that you could do a ton of planning other than let me get more fuel.
Sure. So my game group is unable to meet right now, so my game group consists of my kids. And we have gotten a lot of table time with various games, and one that I was able to introduce to them quite successfully is Downforce. This is the Restoration Games title that's a rejiggering of Wolfgang Kramer's classic racing mechanisms that were out in several games in the past. Downforce uses cards to move cars around. You do a sort of a bidding round to acquire some of these cars, and then you are betting on some of them at different points in the race, and hopefully getting your car or cars that you have bet on to finish the race in prime position to earn money. The latest maps for Downforce, and this is how I introduced the game to the kids. I pulled out the new map. The new map set is called Wild Ride. It has 2 maps. It's a 2-sided map board with some extra tokens. One of the maps has jumps. They're little cardboard ramps that you assemble and put in various places around the board. And in order to use these ramps, you have to hit them at a certain speed. So there's a ramp that says 4 or a ramp that says 6. And if you have that speed card value for the car that you are maneuvering around, if you have that value or higher, you can hit the ramp, and it's a significant savings of space. You can jump. You basically, you're skipping like 3 or 4 spaces over big gaps. There's even one at the very end that can really launch you ahead. But if you don't have enough movement, if you have a lower value that you are moving that car, you can actually force cars to miss the ramp and go around the ramp. If you're steering the car, you can even force them to miss the ramp. The result is that the race is very fast because there's so many ways for cars to move faster along the path. We went through that particular round very, very quickly. It was fun, but it was very fast. The other side of the map, and the kids immediately said, I want to do that again. Can we play the other map? The other one is sort of a savanna track. It has animals on it. There's a snake that goes in the curves. There's an elephant that sits in sort of bottleneck areas, big square tile. And then there's some tsetse flies or some sort of insect that's sort of a long, straight piece. And these are in specific spots along the board, and they act as a roadblock. But then as soon as the lead car passes a certain point, basically passing that animal token, that animal token then moves to the next version of that animal's space. So then this becomes a roadblock that the lead cars are always dealing with. They always have to, go through a much more narrow track, or they have to go around the wide part of the curve because the snake is in the way. And it's almost a catch-up mechanism. And even in a couple of places, there are places where the elephant is literally a roadblock. And if someone, say, my son has the red car, I don't want the red car to do very well, and I have a card that lets me move the red car, I can actually dead-end the car against the back end of the elephant. And that car won't be able to move until the elephant moves, which means another car has to go by, moving the elephant to the next elephant space. I was upset when it happened to me, but then when I was able to do it with another car, I'm like, this is kind of cool as a catch-up mechanism. It was far more strategic, sort of a jockeying. There were more.
Did you laugh when you like? Did you laugh?
There was a small chuckle. Anyway, I like that map better. I had a lot of fun with that map. I mean, Downforce is already a winner for me, and I'm delighted that the children enjoyed it. One map they were both playing, and then the younger one wanted to challenge me, and his brother was helping, and they were sort of strategizing what cards to play and how to make sure my cars didn't get the advantage. It was a blast. So success for Downforce in general, and this new set of maps, Wild Ride, is also really cool. I like the animals better than the jumps, but they're both really neat.
Well, I really like this also so far. I think I like this better than the previous track. And
Okay.
I like both tracks. The crisscrossing, but the animals are neat. The jumps, I think the animals is actually a better mechanism than the jumps. Mm-hmm. But it just feels good to do the jumps.
The jumps are fun, yes, but it's fast. That race is over very quickly.
The next one I want to talk about here, moving from Downforce to a mystical land of animals, and that's Everdell.
Oh, you finally played Everdell.
Well, I'm telling you, I am crossing games off like a madman. Still not going to play 18XX.
Okay.
But Everdell, so far, I want to be clear, I've only played the base game. I know that there are expansions and stuff.
Yep.
It is an engine-building game with a completely unnecessary tree.
Yep.
Which is actually destroyed because it got so beat up at Dice Tower West. Yeah, it just did.
Okay. Yeah.
However, I found a wooden tree to replace it. So,
whoa.
Huzzah.
Huzzah.
Anyhow, Everdell in this game, it's basically a worker placement game. You place your workers, you get resources. You use these resources to build a tableau of cards in front of you that are different buildings and or characters from this little, red wall type area. And some of the buildings, if you build the building first, you can then collect these people for free. You can build cards from your hand or from a shared pool in the middle of the table. And then you get points for all sorts of buildings, and there are various extra missions that you can get points from, and it's very, very straightforward, frankly. I like it. I like it a lot, actually. But I do have one problem with the game, and maybe it's just me, but there's no way in this game to do a deep dive of the deck. For comparison, one of my favorite games is Race for the Galaxy.
Yep.
I love Race for the Galaxy. And in Race for the Galaxy, you can draw 2 cards and keep 1. But you can play another card that lets you draw 6 and keep 1. Mm-hmm. And this is a mistake that new players almost never use that card. Mm-hmm. But I always use it because I'm hunting for specific cards.
Right.
You can't hunt for specific cards in Everdell. In fact, if you have a full hand of cards, you actually can't draw more. You can't draw and replace. You just can't draw more.
Right.
If I'm reading the rules right. So I wouldn't mind that so much. It is what it is. But there are these specialty missions. Oh, I forget what they're called. That say, if you have the Undertaker and the Church,
yep, you'll
score this point. And I'm like, oh, great. Where are these cards? And eventually the Church shows up. I'm like, ooh, I'll get that. But when am I going to get the Undertaker?
Right.
Or the school teacher in the university? And it just seems weird to me. It just that bothers me a little bit. I don't know how to explain it. I don't even have the option to finish those.
Yes, if they don't come out.
If I had to work to get those.
Is there a method
that would be my only complaint.
There's sort of a tableau that you can choose cards from this tableau, but is there a mechanism for wiping the tableau? Maybe
there is. I'd have to look at it again. But the deck is so huge, it's very possible these cards won't show up. And that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. That's my only small thing. Other than that, it's very straightforward. The resources are fun. It's fun to collect these people. It has a good theme to it. I heard the expansions make the game better, but I don't want to judge a game based on whether it has good expansions or not. So, but this one, I can see why people like it. It felt a little bit like a easier Terraforming Mars.
Okay, and certainly the theme might appeal to people.
Although there's a lot of differences between them.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Well, I think it's one of the reasons it's done so well. Great theme, great components.
Lovely art.
But there you go. That's Everdell.
Yeah.
The art is fantastic. I
enjoyed it as well. I played with the Pearlbrook expansion, which is the expansion that's out. I don't think any other expansions are actually out yet, which adds some extra spaces and a new currency, the pearls, and enjoyed it. I think I agree with just about everything you said. I don't remember if there's a way to wipe the tableau. It's possible that there isn't, and you just have to wait until those cards come up.
No, I mean, if it is, that's tis what it is.
Tis what it is. All right, so next for me, I've been working through my backlog of some of the escape games, and I got one of the brand new exit games in the mail recently. This is called the Stormy Flight. The exit games have, especially recently, focused on the easier difficulty level. In fact, if you look at some of the marketing materials inside the boxes, they've now separated them into like beginner boxes and intermediate and expert boxes, sort of marketing them as, well, here's the ones to start with, and here's the ones for people who know what they're doing. The Stormy Flight is one of the beginner boxes. It's, I think, just like a level 2. The last one of these that I did was the... oh boy, I really enjoyed it too. It was the House of Riddles. Yeah, that was what it was called. Really, really liked the House of Riddles. So I was anxious to try this one and say, is this another great entry point into the series? You are, again, I'm not going to spoil anything in the actual puzzles. You're flying a plane, you're in a plane, and you're in the crew, and there's been sort of electrical storm. You're trying to basically get everything up and running again and land the plane. I enjoyed it. Most of the puzzles were true to form. There was, however, and for the first time, what I love about the exit games is that they push the envelope in what can be done inside a box. There's often construction projects and weird ways to use these things in the box, weird components that you'll find in there. And for the first time, the physical components didn't work the way they were intended. There was a point at which I was supposed to bend something, and it didn't bend the way the puzzle needed me to bend it, and it actually creased, which caused it to be very difficult to solve the puzzle. And while I guess I've worried about that in the past whenever we've done these sort of paper craft puzzle solving things, I haven't ruined any puzzles by breaking things. This one I sort of did, and I found that to be frustrating, especially for a beginner puzzle game. So I'd be very wary of this one in handing it to, say, an 8-year-old, which I think is the base level of this level of escape game. I would, again, turn to, if you're trying to introduce people, the House of Riddles is the one to start with. So I'm okay on the Stormy Flight. I usually, all these are generally positive, but the components got in the way of the Stormy Flight.
I'm trying to remember which one this is. Hang on, let me look it up. Because this is one that's not ringing. The name isn't ringing a bell, but yeah, I've not played this one. Wait, this isn't even out yet.
It's brand new. I got this from Cosmos at the same time they sent me the new version of The Crew. So it's that same cycle. So it is either just available now or will be available very soon.
Well, I just got a new one too, but mine says Theft in the Mississippi.
Well, I didn't get that one.
What is this? They're splitting us up.
They're splitting them up?
Don't split the party. I feel like it's a trick. All right, fine. All right. So last game, but not least, it's my favorite of the three, is Hadera. Now, I haven't played Hadera, and I could have played it, I think, a year ago. And I did play it because I'm stubborn.
Okay. This is Hadara.
No.
Hadara. Hadara.
Yes, sorry, Hadara. Thank you. I pronounced it the way I spelled it incorrectly, okay, in the document.
Yes. What he read what was on the page.
So, anyhow, so they played this. This was being played a lot at the gathering of friends. And Jason came up to me and said, Tom, you have to play this game. It's amazing. You must play it right now. And I was like, well.
Just to spite him?
No, I don't. I don't have to. No, not to spite him, but I was just like, no, I don't have to play any game. And then I just never got around to it.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
And then Z played it and reviewed it and stuff. And I was like, well, all right, I'll get to it. And then I didn't get to it. And finally, just a few weeks ago, I was like, you know what? Everyone says this game is good. Let me try it out. And so I played it. So what Hadara is it real quick, it's a game where you're drafting cards. It's a weird kind of drafting. There's these different piles of different colors. And in the first part of each round, you draw 2 cards, pick one, and you can sell it for money, or you can pay money and build it in front of you. Mm-hmm. And you discard the other card. And then after everyone has done this, there'll be a bunch of piles of discards. Then you take turns taking one of the top cards of a discard pile and doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So every card will be seen by people possibly twice.
Yep.
These cards are mostly, they just increase you on 4 different tracks. A money track, a track that lets you conquer provinces, a war track, a statue track that lets you build statues that give you points, and a green track which makes you feed your people because that's a requirement by law.
Yes.
Although it doesn't bother me. It's not so much feeding your people. It's more of it makes more space for you to have more cards.
Yes. Which
would be a better way to look at it.
Yeah.
There's also some purple cards that give you special abilities and do cool things. And it's a solid game. It just makes me very satisfied to pick a color or 2 colors and try to see how far up the track I can get those. To try to build a lot of cards, but not too many, because if you build too many, you might not have enough green to pay for them, and then you have to discard a few, which if you work hard at it, you can avoid that, but the game makes you think about it for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of people have compared this to Seven Wonders. Other than the take a card or sell it, I don't really see a comparison. You're not passing cards on to the next person. It's not a real draft. The only difference is you discard a card which somebody might buy later, but that also could be you.
Yes.
And other than that, it's just about moving up on these different tracks, which, similar to the game Dominations, is something I find that I like a lot. I like trying to maximize a track, or maybe try to get all my tracks up to a certain number. Mm-hmm. I found it to be just a lot of fun, and it has a good deal of replayability because the different cards in each stack are going to be different from game to game.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed that, the drafting mechanism, or the draft/discard then purchase mechanism is really cool.
And I realized, so I looked at what games that this designer has designed. His name is Benjamin Schwer. He's also done Crown of Amara, which is another game I really liked, and Livingston, which is a game a lot of people don't know about from Playroom Entertainment, which was really well done too. He's done some other games that he's done several Haba games.
Okay.
Drakentrek, Frido's Butte, Monster Menus, Space Planets, Ooga Ooga, and Werfel Kung Fu.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I always find it interesting to see what other games people designed. So, I don't know. He's at the point now where if he designs another Euro game, I'm there.
Okay.
So that is Hadara, Hadara.
Last for me is a couple more of the escape games. These are Unlock, and this is from the box. Unlock has switched to, instead of the small boxes, they're now selling their adventures in larger triple boxes. And this
They've actually replaced some of the older ones that they've
combined them
boxes
into big boxes. This is from the Heroic Adventures set. I played 2 of these back to back. The Sherlock Holmes adventure and an Alice in Wonderland adventure from the same box. The Sherlock Holmes mystery is one of my favorites of this entire series. You're tracking down clues. There are suspects to interview. You're trying to figure out who's lying, who killed the body, and you're finding clues in that examination of the crime scene. Really cool the way it all came together, and for whatever reason, everything clicked for me. I felt like a genius at the end of this, and it all worked. I loved the Sherlock adventure in Heroic Adventures.
Do you feel, though, that the Sherlock adventure is maybe the least like an Unlock game?
I don't know if I mean, it twists the genre a little bit. It's not the standard find item, combine, and then do something. But it uses the system in novel ways. And you're still examining cards and combining items. And some of the items that you're combining are witnesses and what you're asking them about, but you're still using the system. Yeah, it is a departure. I will say that, but I love the departure.
I'm not saying this necessarily in a bad thing. It just didn't feel. It felt more like a solve a mystery than it felt like an Unlock.
Perhaps,
which is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying. It felt different. That's
well, I mean,
all.
if one possible criticism that the Unlock adventures have had is that they're feeling a little too similar, and I do like that some of these newer sets have tried to push the envelope a little bit.
Well, you're gonna love the next set then, but I will not spoil that. So.
I actually have the next set, haven't gotten to it yet. But speaking of pushing the envelope, the next one I played is the Alice in Wonderland adventure, and you would expect that a Alice in Wonderland themed adventure is going to be a little weird. It's going to be a little off the rails and unconventional, and this one certainly is. But my problem with the Alice in Wonderland adventure is that when you go off the rails too far, you sort of lose the thread of what is allowed. And there are points of logic, leaps of logic in the Alice in Wonderland one that I just wouldn't have even considered as being. It breaks the fourth wall a lot. It has you searching for things that you wouldn't normally be searching for. And then even the solutions aren't necessarily the solutions that you would be wanting.
I know one of the ones you're talking about.
Yeah. There was one point at which I was totally stuck in the Alice. And I had looked at everything and I had followed all of the leads that I had, and it's that I was supposed to make a leap of logic, that I was supposed to continue doing something that I wouldn't have even considered as being the next logical step. I just was I was totally off the rails, and I had to start searching the deck to figure out what I was supposed to do next. It was disappointing after having such a great experience with Sherlock to have Alice be like, it wasn't that I felt like I had missed a clue. It's that they were thinking in a direction that I wouldn't have even considered. And whatever clue I was supposed to notice was not a clue. And it was frustrating as opposed to an entertaining adventure. So Heroic Adventures, if you remember, the third one of that is the Insert Coin, a video game themed, which I also adored. So 2 out of 3 in the Heroic box are great. That Alice one, your mileage may vary. Maybe you are more in line with the Lewis Carroll style of thinking. I was not.
I got to say that it is one of my favorites.
Really, the Alice?
I really like it.
Okay.
I don't know what to tell you. It's just super. It is super fun, and this is currently. I haven't played the third one in the new setup yet. I played 2 of the 3, and I enjoyed both of them a lot.
Okay.
So maybe the third one, but of the one that Eric just talked about, It's Heroic Adventures. I
Yes.
enjoyed all three, and that's very rare for me.
Okay.
I liked Alice in Wonderland, my favorite, then the Coin Op, and then the Sherlock Holmes one was my least favorite, but I still enjoyed it.
Okay. Well, we'll talk after. We'll talk off air, and I'll complain to you about specifically what I was upset about.
Yeah, I really feel like I know, actually. Alrighty. It's now time to... Oh, I should make a quick mention here, folks, for our backer kit for our Kickstarter. I think I mentioned it last time, like, hey, it's happening soon. Well, It's still happening soon. Realize that everything is slowed down right now.
Yes, it is. Yep.
And in fact, I'll be perfectly frank with those of you listening, it slowed down to the point where we may not hit our deadline. I'm going to try my hardest to hit the deadline, but realize that every company who's giving us promos has been affected by this. We have a lot of the promos, but yeah, so there's just a lot of slowness there. So we're going to send that out. Keep in mind, too, that this year, unlike previous years, we're going to be, our shipping costs have increased greatly. So we're not trying to gouge people on shipping, but we're also not trying to lose money for the Dice Tower. So keep that in mind as we send these things out. Either way, that's going out. If you want to be involved in that and you weren't in the original Kickstarter, you can email us at just email us at tom@dicetower.com, and I'll get it to the right person for that. All right, let's talk about exponents.
3, 2, 1, go.
It's time for Game Tech with Jeff Engelstein, where we find out how games really work.
I've been thinking a lot about exponential growth recently. Now, one way to generate exponential growth is to continually multiply a value by the same number over and over again. For example, you can start with 1 and keep multiplying by 2, and the sequence you get is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and so on. If you multiply by 10, you get the exponential series 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million. Now, people are notoriously bad at understanding exponential sequences. We just don't realize how quickly they grow and how they get so big so fast. The most famous example of this actually involves a game board, the story of the chessboard and the grains of wheat. The oldest known version of this story goes back to 1256 in the writings of Ibn Khalakhan, but it is probably even older. One version of the story is that an Indian ruler wanted to reward the inventor of chess. The inventor replied that he only wanted some grains of wheat on a chessboard. 1 grain of wheat on the first square, 2 on the second square, 4 on the third, 8 on the fourth, and so on, doubling the amount of each square for the 64 squares. The ruler quickly agrees, thinking how he got off with giving such a small reward. However, as the rewards are given one after the next, the amount of wheat outstrips everything in the kingdom. Sometimes the inventor becomes a high-ranking advisor, but in other stories he's executed for being a wise guy. So, how many grains of wheat would it take to fill all 64 squares? 18 pentillion, 446 quadrillion, 744 trillion, 73 billion, 709 million, 551,000, and 615. That is a lot of wheat. And the crazy thing is that half of all that is just due on the final square. Because exponentials get so big so fast, they are rarely used in the core of a game design. In fact, I can only think of 2, the doubling cube in backgammon and the 1980 game Civilization from Francis Tresham. In Civilization, each player starts with a single tribe token and an empty map of Europe. The first thing that happens is population growth. In every area where there is one tribe population token, you add another one. In every space with 2 or more tokens, you add 2 more. So as long as you have just 1 or 2 tokens in every space, your population doubles. And early on, it is easy to spread out and grow. That 1 token very quickly blooms into a mass of tokens. On turn 1, you have 1 token. On turn 5, you have 32 tokens. But eventually, you run out of room to grow or tokens to place, and it feels like hitting a wall as your growth dramatically slows. You really feel it when you play. However, population is constantly getting removed due to city growth, conflict, disasters, and more. And one of the great parts about the design of Civilization is that even if you just get knocked down to a handful of tokens, you can expand incredibly rapidly and catch up to the other players again. And the population tokens double as currency that you need to pay taxes. If you have too many population tokens on the board, your cities will revolt. If you have too few, your cities will starve. And balancing the exponential population growth while dealing with so many other issues is a big part of what makes Civilization such a delight to play. Now, one other example of exponentials in gaming, and this is a cautionary tale. There's a gambling system called the Martingale, which changes your bet sizes so that you, and I am doing major air quotes here, never lose. Now, the Martingale operates like this. It is typically used on a near 50-50 bet, like red or black in roulette. You place a minimum bet, let's call it $1 for this example. So you bet $1. If you win, great. You bet another $1. But if you lose the $1 bet, you bet again, but double it. So $2 next. If you win that one, you go back to the $1 bet. But if you lose the $2 bet, you double again, and your next bet goes to $4. And you keep going like this. Win, go back to $1, lose, double the bet. Now, theoretically, you will win at some point, and when you win the doubling sequence, you will be up $1. For example, if you lose the $1, $2, and $4 bets, but win the $8 bet, you lose $7 total, 1 plus 2 plus 4, but win $8 for a net win of $1. The system looks good on paper. At some point, you'd think you have to win a 50-50 bet, right? The problem is that people dramatically underestimate how likely it is to get a string of losses, and the amount you need to bet gets incredibly high really quickly. At some point, you won't be able to afford the next doubled bet, and then you're out a huge amount of money. And also, most casinos have a maximum bet, so at some point, you're going to lose. You just can't beat the house. Martingale systems don't work and are incredibly dangerous. If you gamble, do not try them. Are you aware of any other games that use exponential growth? If so, please let me know. This is Geoff Engelstein with GameTech.
I've been really trying to think of games that have exponential growth, and I couldn't think of any.
No.
But I will say that Geoff just read one of the biggest numbers I've ever heard read out loud.
Yes, indeed. That was a Often, Geoff's segments will fly over my head, but this one had actual actionable advice. Don't use that betting technique. That's a terrible idea. Plus, there was a story. I like story time. Well, this was great.
I blame Geoff now for getting my addiction back up. So this is a roundabout way. Now listen, it's Geoff's fault. Seriously.
Sure.
So there's an online massive multiplayer game that's not really one. It's called Kingdom of Loathing. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I've heard of it. I haven't played it or experienced it.
Yeah, it's a game with stick figures, and you go in and you get 30 actions a day. Of course, you can stretch it out to like 200 or something. You can do a lot of different things a day in this game. And I loved it. I played it for a long time, and then it kind of died off. But in this game, there's a casino you can go to, and you can just do the random number game where you can put up a bunch of money in the game. It's called meat. So I can say a million meat, and someone else will do a million meat, and it spins, and one of you wins it.
Okay.
And so you could lose or double your money, and you can play this as many times as you want. So I was looking into this, and I was reading strategy tips on the game. This was years ago, and one of them was, don't play this game. And then there was people who came up with this strategy. They said, you bid a certain amount of meat, and then you just keep doubling it and doubling it and doubling it, and eventually you'll win. But the fact is you might not win. And you will eventually hit your upper limit.
Yep.
That you do not have enough. I mean, yeah, maybe you could keep doubling it, but you will hit an upper limit.
Yep.
And this is also one of the reasons casinos will put in those maximum bets that you can do anyway.
Right. At some point, they're going to keep your money.
Right. So, I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting thing that Geoff brought to us here.
Indeed.
So, all righty. Let's keep moving.
Support for this episode comes from the Op Games, also known as USAopoly, presenting Harry Potter Death Eaters Rising. He who must not be named has returned. Lord Voldemort and his Death Eaters are a mounting threat to Hogwarts and the wizarding community, compelling everyone to combine their strengths against the dark villains. In Harry Potter Death Eaters Rising, players must summon witches and wizards from Dumbledore's army, the Order of the Phoenix, and Hogwarts to retaliate against evil Death Eaters and protect the wizarding world from the Dark Lord's corruption for good. Harry Potter Death Eaters Rising is for 2 to 4 players ages 11 plus and plays in about 60 minutes. Available now.
All right, folks, we're going to take a break here in the middle of the show, and I wanted to do something slightly different because several weeks ago I got an email from Jen CB, and it affected me enough that I wanted to bring her on the show and talk about it. In a top 10, I believe, we were talking about Kickstarters and how slow they are in being delivered. And I said, the problem with that is, even if you pass away, your spouse would have to deal with those games still coming in for, quite a while. And so.
Oh, interesting.
So Jen, emailed me about this very subject. And so I thought I would bring her on. And so, Jen, we're going to turn it over to you. If you could, tell us a little bit about why you emailed me and in response to that.
Absolutely. So a few years ago, back in 2016, my husband was a huge time board gamer, listened to the Dice Tower, the Secret Cabal, we watched, all of the YouTube videos, and he was a big time board gamer in Ontario. And unfortunately, in October of 2016, passed away suddenly due to what we now know was pancreatic cancer. Actually, he had a clean bill of health in August of 2016, but by the Canadian Thanksgiving in October, he died within 5 days of going into the hospital. And since then, and he loved Kickstarter. He loved finding so many of those new board games that were coming out. He pre-purchased as many as he could get his hands on. And I ended up receiving 4 games on my doorstep for that following year. So I ended up living through that life experience in which you had articulated in your YouTube video. And a couple of friends of mine that are huge board gamers that were best friends of Derek's, they showed me this video and they said, Jen, we got goosebumps when we heard this because you lived it. And I had to reach out and say, this happens, this did happen, but it ended up being a very unique and cool experience in the healing process of death, grieving, even PTSD. It was actually living through what I call board gaming version of P.S. I Love You, because every month I would receive board games on the front steps, and it would just be an amazing memory of Derek. And different friends would ask, okay, what game did you get next? And ended up being a positive experience through tragedy.
Now, were you keeping track of the ones coming in, or was it a kind of a surprise when they would show up?
It was a surprise. Derek, and to kind of paint the picture here, Derek had been board gaming for about 3 years. He got into the board gaming community, went to Origins and all those events and stuff for about 3 years. He acquired approximately 496 board games in the 3 years.
Whew.
Now, he loved board gaming. And yes, maybe he did have a fear of missing out, that FOMO that you had talked about, but he just loved them so much, and he loved talking about them. He loved teaching them. He loved to research them, everything. It was just 100% into board games. And so, no, I didn't keep track of them because it was so big. The collection was so big. The wish list was much bigger than that. For me, I just kept it as a surprise every month. So the one I do remember was the first big board game, and I believe it was either November or December of 2016, and it was Conan. The big Conan game was coming. And it was a huge box with all the expansions, and it was this really cool experience opening it up, and I ended up gifting it to one of his best buds there.
Yeah, that would be my next question. What do you usually do with the games? Do you play? Have you played some of them? Have they become ones that you've enjoyed personally, or do they all go to someone else after you've looked through them?
Yeah, so I guess I would start by saying that the number one question I had through this tragedy was, Jen, how are you doing? And the second question I received was, what are you going to do with the board games? So I ended, and people thought, oh my goodness, that could be offensive. No, I do not. I've never taken that question offensive, because that was him. This was Derek, and it was part of his identity. So naturally, people are going to have this curiosity. I am not a huge board gamer. There are a couple I did keep, like Ticket to Ride. I love teaching Ticket to Ride, so I do have that one. And, about a handful of others. I sold a lot. I had a couple of board game sales. But his best friends and his close friends, like I asked them all, like, what was their favorite game that they played with Derek, and I gift that game. And then I had a couple of board game sales through that year to sell off the rest, because it was just so many, like, almost 500 board games. So yeah. I'm not going to keep all of them. But it's only been in the last, I want to say, about 6 months that I've got back into playing a little bit of board games. So Ticket to Ride, Settlers of Catan, I enjoy. Labyrinth, I enjoy teaching children, Corkle and Suro and Animal Upon Animal. So just some of those games I really, really enjoy. But that's as far as I go in terms of the board gaming world.
So you think the last game has shown up at this point?
Yeah, so the last game I received was actually in October of 2017. So it was approximately the 1 year mark, which is why I say it was like a P.S. I Love You, because it was that movie kind of articulated that first year after the husband passed away. And it was a nice just recap. I was done by that point when the last game came in, and my buddy, that was one of Derek's best friends, he was kind of keeping tabs on them as well on the list. So he had probably stronger access to his accounts, like board game wish lists and stuff. And he said that this is going to be the last game. And it was nice. It was nice, a clean cut, wrap it up sort of idea. And, I was ready to move on at that point. I've since been in another relationship, found a happily ever after sort of life circumstance. So it was time to move on.
So, with all this having gone on, and it's really interesting to hear how strong you are through all this, do you have any kind of advice you give to people? Like, is this something that people should think about?
I think in general, so I'm personally, like, I'm a life coach, speaker, and author, and I teach people about the process of grief, moving through PTSD, mindfulness meditation definitely helps with the grieving process. And also just the casual conversations that might be a little bit uncomfortable, what to do in case of. Derek was 40 and I was 33 at the time that he passed. We were married for 8 years. This came in like a curveball. It was 1 minute he was fine, the next minute he woke up and not well. And so in those cases, being a young couple, do you have life insurance? Do you have mortgage insurance? Have you asked your partner those specific questions, what to do in case of? And that can also include personal possessions, collections that mean the world to that individual. What are you going to do afterwards? And allow yourself the time to grieve, to heal, and also to also openly talk about the memory of loved ones that have passed. I'm very much open to talk about Derek, and very grateful that I found a new relationship that I'm very open in talking about the memory of Derek, and it's very comfortable, and life is good. Life is, filled with highs and lows and curveballs and successes and triumphs, and you just kind of have to roll with the punches, so to speak.
I like how what could be considered a burden, all of this extra stuff emerging and showing up has become a something to look forward to and a good thing after your husband is gone, to have these objects that he loved so much be a nice reminder. And I like how that sort of flipped. What could be considered a burden is something positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there is so much negativity going on in today's world. I think we need to actively exercise our minds into thinking a little bit more positive. So I could, like every game that came in, I could choose whether or not I wanted to look at it as a burden or as a blessing. And I mean, Derek, he'd be the type of guy to come and help you out at 2 a.m. in the morning if you called him. He'd give the shirt off his back and always grinning ear to ear. And so because he just loved board games so much, I simply couldn't look at it as a negative. Mm-hmm. And so it became this amazing experience. And I used it, you try to use, the cards that you're dealt with. You try to use whatever you have to heal, to move forward. And this was the card that I was dealt with, having these board games to help me move forward. So, and to answer your question, Tom, if people want to find me, if they want to ask me more questions with regards to it, they can go to gencb.com. Very easy.
All righty. Well, thanks so much for coming on our show, and we really appreciate this more than you might know.
Oh, thanks so much. It's been an absolute honor. I know Derek is grinning ear to ear that I'm speaking to you both.
Tom.
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 Hi, Tom.
How do you pack your hats for safe travel?
If you were stranded on a desert island with one of the aliens from Cosmic Encounter, which one would it be?
Tom, gamers want to know. Is that Eric's real voice?
And now, the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe, answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the game library?
Our first question today comes from Jared. He says, Tom's mentioned that something he doesn't condone is making other people play games so they get into the hobby. I'm going to fix that in a second, but hang on. He says, but it seems based on what Eric says every other week on the podcast that he's basically doing this with his kids all the time. All right, so before we jump to Eric, let me before we put Eric in a hot seat, I like to clarify what I'm saying here is I don't feel like you need to evangelize and get people into the hobby. I have no problem with somebody, you going to somebody and saying, hey, you want to try this game? And if they enjoy it and they get into the hobby, so be it. But I think we should teach people games because we think they will enjoy them, not so that we can hook another sucker into the hobby.
Lure them in. Yeah, I mean, there is sort of a sense that, if only we could just get some more warm bodies in the chairs, then we could convert them into gamers. All we have to do is show them the game and they'll be gamers. I'll be playing 18XX before long.
Right.
Yeah.
And so to that end, I do want to get people to play games, but if they aren't interested in games, I will instantly drop it because adults will pick the hobbies they want. And I use that word specifically. Right. Passing it off to Eric.
Well, Jared, I'm not
Why are you
tying
brainwashing your kids?
I'm not tying them down to play a game. So when I first read this, we were getting ready for the show, and at the exact moment I read Jared's question, I looked over, and my children were playing the Harry Potter Hogwarts battle by themselves. I didn't suggest it. I didn't force them to play it. They're playing games on their own, and it's just sometimes they're not always in the mood, and I get a little grumpy about that because I want to play stuff too. It's been great actually the past couple of weeks that because activities are all canceled, we've actually been playing a lot more as a family, and as an evening activity, there's enough time before bed, and they've gotten all their schoolwork done because that's done during the day, and we can play a game. So They are willing participants. I'm not forcing them to play.
Real quick, I want to jump in on this. I will say I think you can force your kids to do things, though, if you want to occasionally. Because kids will never do anything without you pushing them to do it. Some kids.
That is true. And a couple of times, like I mentioned, Downforce, they would never have picked that on their own, except this time it was my pick. I said, I think you're going to like this, and I want to try this new track. Let's do this. And they're like, really? We're going to play it down? Yeah, let's play. And fortunately, it worked. They enjoyed it. But sometimes it doesn't. So yes, occasionally you have to push a little. Kyle wants to know if Tom ever feels the need to go back and play some older titles that have become popular. At the time of writing this, Kyle says, you have rated 97 of the top 100 games on Board Game Geek. Everdell, number 60, which looks like you just corrected, Lisboa, number 66, and Pandemic Iberia, number 86, are the three lacking a rating. So the question is, what factors, if any, do you weigh when considering whether to play a somewhat older game that has found sustained popularity? The onslaught of new games must be quite a challenge, but let's say a game you haven't played climbs into the top 5 on Board Game Geek. What do you do then? What do you do?
Well, I know deliberately I put this question in this episode because, ching, I knocked it out. I've actually, you've missed it, Kyle. I actually had only rated 96. I also have not played Kingdom Death yet.
Oh,
so
okay.
So I'm still missing 3. Kingdom Death, Lisboa, Pandemic Iberia. Pandemic Iberia, I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time for that one. When that came out at Essen, I was staying in a hotel room in the nice hotel. And Eric and everybody else were staying in the garbage hotel, and they all played it. Pandemic Iberia without me.
Yes,
but I still think I may have come out ahead there.
Come now! Iberia is great.
No, I do want to play Pandemic Iberia. I'm just saying I would have picked the hotel over the game.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Lisboa, I might play at some point. I hear it's a fairly heavy game. Kingdom Death, maybe. I don't know. I like to have all top 100 games on the BGG list played just because it looks good for a reviewer, I suppose. But what factors, though, he says, do you weigh when deciding whether to play a somewhat older game that has found sustained popularity, like Everdell? Yeah. If I want to do it, that's literally what it is. There's some older games that are very popular, like in the Year of the Dragon. I've read enough about this game to know what it's like. It's very popular, but I know I won't like the game, so I'm not going to go out of my way to play it.
Yeah.
And there's other games that sometimes I just look at it and go, I'm just never going to get that to the table. I just don't have time. It's very interesting now where we're at, as an aside here. There's very few games coming out right now. As we speak. You're going to see very few games that are released in April and May, and who knows, and I'm wondering if with this stoppage that we're suddenly going to see this massive explosion. Like, the consumers aren't too upset about it. They're like, oh, here's a chance to play our games finally.
I have time to get back and play. Yeah, it's true. We're not having to keep up. Are we going to
see at Gen Con, or if Gen Con doesn't happen at Essen, so many games that our eyes just spin in circles?
Everything's getting pushed off. Yeah. Or are some of the Essen releases going to get pushed back to 2021?
Well, pushback is not a bad thing. It is kind of weird. We're having a forced 2-month break here or so, and I'm literally getting games. I mean, I literally played games that I haven't played in a while because I had the time to do it.
Yeah.
Now, I still can't play every game. I still can't get all the games played. I'm sitting here looking at a shelf right now with games that I really am interested in playing, right? And I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. I have 33 games I really want to play.
Wow.
I know. I'm not even talking about the games that I'll play it, fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I answering Kyle's question, I am not nearly as close as you are, Tom, to getting everything played. And so I'm just of the opinion that if I miss it, I miss it. And the stuff that does float to the top that I haven't had a chance to play, there are opportunities often to play those. They will be ones that if I'm going to, like, my local convention, if someone's running one of those that from 1 or 2 years ago that I haven't had a chance to play, those are the ones that I'll sometimes focus on. Here I get to get taught this game by someone who really loves it. If they're teaching a 2-year-old, 3-year-old game at a convention and it's made the schedule, there's a reason why it continues to be popular enough to be taught at a convention. So those are the ones I'll often focus on and finally get a chance to learn it from someone who loves it.
Eric makes a really good point. I didn't even think about that. If you're taught the game by someone who loves it, and that can really change everything. Eric, you have spoken wisdom.
It happens every once in a while.
Holden says, I've been wondering why so few companies have open submissions for games. And then he says, the only one that comes to mind is Stonemaier, which leads me to my question, why don't more companies have open submissions? It doesn't make sense to me because there's so many successful Kickstarters of games that could have been picked up by major companies, but they're never given a chance by major publishers. Quick aside, there's like 2 major publishers. So anyway. And do you think that there could ever be a market for a board game scout that finds the next hit game among all the unpublished prototypes? Okay, so let's do this. All right, so first, why don't more companies have open submissions?
Well, I think because they'd be flooded. That's my general. I don't own a board game publisher, but I imagine that if you open the floodgates, you will get a bunch of stuff that is not a fit for your company. And so by having some sort of gatekeeping aspect where you need to make an appointment at a convention or you need to discuss what game you're pitching before you send material to them, they can weed out the stuff that would not be a fit from the very beginning for their company. That's my guess.
Yes, I really think it's really easy to think that there's, these publishers are really looking for games, but publishers know that if they do open solicitations, the percentage of games they get that are not good is very high. And it's very exhausting to look at 99 bad games to get one good one. Open submissions usually is not the best way to get games. Having someone recommend a game to you is a better way. It just is. And, you mentioned Stonemaier, but how many games has he done that he hasn't designed? Not many. So just because they, quote unquote, have an open submission doesn't mean they're going to look at them all. Maybe he does, but still. And so, yes, there's successful Kickstarters of games, but I'd like you to list how many of these successful Kickstarters go on to be successful game companies. You're going to see, unfortunately, this year, a lot of game companies go out of business. And we said that way before anything happened. We were talking that was going to happen this year, or bought up by other companies. It just is. It's hard work to run a board game company. It's hard work to run a business in general. And so it's a lot easier to give your game to another company, but they are getting flooded with submissions. There's a ton of games in the market. We're not looking for good games. We're looking for great games. Companies don't want a game that will sell 2,000 copies. They want a game that will sell 20,000. So that's why open submissions are tough. But you can still submit your game to a company. You just got to work your way up there. You got to network. You got to play your game with people. You got to get the buzz going to where it's a little easier to meet that person who will introduce you to the company where you can show them your game.
Yeah.
And so he says, is there a market for a board game scout that finds the next hit game among all the unpublished prototypes? Yes. And in fact, some companies have people who that is their job to do.
Right. Is Holden asking about like a board game matchmaker? Someone whose job it is, do they work on commission? I don't know how that would work. It would
be really hard. So I'll tell you this. I do this as a bit of a side project. I specifically work with Arcane Wonders to look for games for Dice Tower Essentials. Mm-hmm. If I find a game that I don't think's a fit for Arcane Wonders in that line, I will recommend them. I've called companies before. I've hooked people up together. I apologize if this sounds braggy. I don't mean it to be. I haven't done this a ton because I don't want to look at prototypes. I don't want people accosting me at conventions saying, please look at this, and then you could hook me up with Come On or Stronghold or Yellow or whatever, because that's not my main job. I've done it more of a side thing. To do it full time, I would have to have complete trust of these companies. They would have to trust me explicitly. And they all don't necessarily, because they all don't necessarily agree with my taste. And I would need to know what kind of games those companies were using. Right. What kind of games that they... Now, that I feel pretty confident. I feel pretty confident if you brought me a game and I thought it was good, I could find the right publisher for it. But I'm not doing that, just to be clear.
Right. It's much more of that's more of an internal job for a particular publisher to have someone whose job it is to look at submissions, have those meetings, make those connections with designers, because that person is going to know specifically what the publisher is looking for to fit gaps in their slate. Eric has a question about solo gaming. When did it become such a thing? I myself enjoy solo gaming. I have even bought games because they have solo gaming in it when I have specifically been looking for that. But when did it become such a cult? I had some examples.
Sorry, keep going.
Okay, I had some examples, but they felt a bit mean, so I think it is sufficient enough to bring up the comment left on the Edge of Darkness unboxing on your channel as an example of the usual contribution by this very loud subset of a group. What is he talking about?
Okay, well, there's two different things. Okay, first of all, I apologize, Eric, for reading your question in April 2020. Of all the times to ask, when did solo gaming become a thing? I would say in March and April of 2020.
Yes.
But taking that aside, yes, solo gaming's really been growing over the past year. I kind of would make offhanded funny remarks about solo gaming, and I would get chewed out for it sometimes. Now, listen, there's a lot of wonderful people who play solo games. Mike DeLisio on the Dice Tower channel is a big example of that. Liz Davidson. They love solo games, and that's fine. And I've played several games solo myself, even though I'm not a solo gamer. There are a few people, though, who it is a little odd to me. I'll say, oh, here's the solo variant for this game. I don't really care about that. It's okay for me to say that I don't care about that. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that I personally don't care about it.
Is it that they're upset that you're not, like, so if you're watching an unboxing video and they're watching all the components come out, and so the solo stuff shows up, and you say, I don't care about that. But a viewer who's interested in the solo variant is like, no, I want to know what that is. Why are you throwing that to the side? Open that envelope and show me what's in that. Why are you doing this to me, Tom? That's maybe what it is. I'll take the blame. You have to make a separate video and say, now I will read all of the pages in the solo variant.
Actually, Mike is now sometimes doing a solo review of actual games that I have skipped over for whatever reason.
So in the unboxing video then, when you say, oh, here's the solo stuff, I don't need that, you should just have Mike creep in from the corner of the screen, go like a crab just taking away the components, scuttling away.
Sure. That's how that works. All right. So Ben says, here in Italy, people are gearing up for the 3-day PlayCon at Modena. By the way, folks, this is an older question.
Sure.
So he talks about Eric Lang, and he says during the year he became friends with a couple who are into gaming, but are still new to the local gaming community. I told her about the con and later also him. His response left me at a loss for words, though. He said, I don't think we're interested because for me, gaming is something you do with friends. I have no interest in gaming with strangers. Is it me, says Ben, or is that a weird belief? Obviously, playing with friends is a double positive, but not seeing any pleasure in gaming just because you don't know the other players seems so extreme to me. I cannot help but thinking about that line in the Simpsons episode, A Streetcar Named Marge. A stranger is just a friend you haven't met. Well, we're using Simpsons quotes for philosophy. Anyway.
Yes.
So Ben wants to know what we think about this particular subject.
I understand where Ben's coming from, but I don't think it is that weird a perspective. My wife sort of falls into this category. She's far more willing to use games as a social event to interact with friends that we already have. She'll play stuff with people she doesn't know, but she prefers to play with people that she does, and it's something to do with friends, and it's not as much about let's explore brand new games and mechanisms and get the joy out of the game itself. This is something to do with friends. So I get it. It certainly isn't my view. I'm very interested in playing new mechanisms and games, and if the way to do that is to meet new people, and that's all the better. Great. That's fantastic. But I do understand it's sort of like, where do games fall in your social sphere? And if it's something that I do with friends, I can see not wanting to push it beyond that. What do you mean play with people I don't know? It's something I do with friends. It makes sense.
Yeah, I think this is going to be split, and I think more people lean to playing with friends. Even at our conventions, and you can ask Eric, I work really hard. I get on all the Dice Tower staff all the time and say,
yes,
play with Dice Tower staff, but also play with people you don't know.
Yes.
Because even though the Dice Tower staff is very friendly and outgoing, all of them, and even myself included, it's just very natural to want to gravitate towards people you already know. Because if you play with strangers all the time, which is something I do, right? I consistently grab people I don't know and play a board game with them. I have run into people who I was like, that wasn't a great experience. And to be clear, I've run into very few horrible experiences. But there are sometimes you play with someone, you're like, yeah, that person's kind of annoying. That person's an alpha gamer. That person's a poor loser. That person's a rule stickler. Whatever.
And that was all me.
Well, 3 of those were, but the fourth one wasn't. But I'll tell you what, I personally wouldn't trade it away because for a few bad apples I've run into, I've played with hundreds of fantastic people. However, if you ask me to name any of those hundreds of people, I would forget many of them. And some people don't want to run into those bad experiences at all, or some people are introverts. So even though I push the Dice Tower staff to do it, it's for Dice Tower, so that people get to play with Dice Tower people. But on a personal level, and I also push people to do it because I think it's good to meet. It's good for the introverts who come to conventions so that they may play with people. But if you're someone who doesn't want to play with other people, if you go to a con, or let's say you don't want to go to a con, first of all, that's fine. That makes sense. If you do go to a con and you just play with your friends, I don't have a problem with that. The only time I think it's weird is when you go to a con with your friends and you sit and play with those friends the whole con, and I think, couldn't you just have stayed at home? Now, yes, there's a library at the con, and you might be going for other things and just to get away and such. I do encourage people to game with people you haven't done, but if someone is really kind of shy about that, I'm not going to push them into it. And I don't think it's necessarily weird. I actually think it's pretty normal. And normal starts with N.
Ah, that's a great segue. That's a really good segue.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10!
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is brought to you by The Op, also known as USAopoly, at theop.games.
All righty. Best games that start with the letter N as we go through our alphabet, and continuing on this. Here's something that I found to be interesting. I thought N would be a super easy letter, and it's not.
No, I actually had to make some tough decisions on this one. There weren't as many N games as I thought there would be.
There really isn't. I only have one N game in my top 100 games of all time, actually. And so when I went out of it, I was like, there's a lot. Now, as time went by, it was easier, and then I had to make some tough call on what to cut. And there's a few N games that Eric has on his list that I just don't really care for very much. Actually, there's only one. Never mind.
Okay.
Well, two, but still. It's interesting, and we don't actually have a lot of crossover, just a couple games.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised. Well, maybe you just haven't played that one. That's probably it. That's it.
Sure.
Let's do this.
We'll get there.
Start with you, Eric. Eric.
Thank you.
Number 10.
Let's begin with Navigador, my number 10. This is a Matt Gertz Rondel game. I love those. We already know this. This is one that isn't in my collection, though. But what I like about Navigador is the exploration element. You actually start in one corner of the board, and you through your Rondel actions can explore different sections, and then every time you explore those, you've revealed new colonies that you can acquire, and you work your way along, and of course the stuff is better as you get further along the track. It's a neat system and different from, in fact, very different from all of the other Rondel games that I've played. Navigador, number 10.
Well, okay, I will. No. I think that's a good game. I just haven't played this one yet because I have played a lot of Matt Gertz games, and I got tired of the rondel. But also, it's been a really long time since I played with a rondel. So then, what do I know?
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. My number 10 is a small little game called Noises at Night. Now, this is a little cute deduction-style game where each person is a specific character, and you're moving the characters around and doing various things, trying not to get people to guess who you are. It's really quick. It's a fun little deduction game that works for families and with kids. I'm really impressed with this one. Great production values. This is my maybe off pick for the list because probably a lot of you haven't heard of this game. It's a 15-minute deduction game, which is very rare. And I don't know. It's from B&B Game Studio, and it's designed by Floyd Liu. Yeah, I was very impressed with this little game. Very cute artwork. That's Noises at Night. Has 2 N's, so therefore I am a point ahead of Eric.
Double points. Oh, okay.
That will be the only time I can mention that on this list for either of us.
So you're going to end the list one ahead?
That's right, baby!
Number 9.
Number 9 is Notre Dame, the Stefan Feld game about, it's sort of an area control aspect, but it uses action cards to determine what you're doing, moving your pieces around and avoiding rats. It's a neat one. Another one that's not in my collection, though, but my game group brings it to the table quite a bit. Notre Dame is my number 9.
Yes, that's a game, all right. All right, my number 9 is another very light game called Nobody But Us Chickens. This is one I still like to see reprinted. Essentially, this is one of those games in which everyone plays a card at the same time and reveals it, simultaneous selection, and you're trying to throw out a bunch of hens and then capture these hens with the rat and fox, or play a dog when someone else plays the rat or fox. So it's kind of like a rock, paper, scissors, but it plays 6 people, and it's very, very entertaining. I played this one quite a bit. Nobody But Us Chickens.
Number 8.
My number 8 is Nyctophobia, the game that is played with the sense of touch. Everybody is wearing blackout glasses except for one player who's the hunter, and you're using your fingers to touch the pieces and move around the board and try and avoid the bad guy as they try and hunt you down. It's not a perfect game, but it has such a visceral sense of terror and tension that I think it deserves to be on the list. You are unnerved playing this game. Not only if you are a sighted player who can usually see the pieces in front of you, to have the inability to do that is disconcerting. And then as a hide and seek sort of game, it's pretty neat. Nyctophobia, my number 8.
Yeah, I love the concept of this. I love what she did with it, and it's okay. I just don't think the game itself is as great. It's a cooler concept, and I think it plays out to be, unfortunately. Number 8 for me is an older worker placement game called Ninjago. This is it's been re-implemented by a card game of sorts, which I'm forgetting the name of the card game. But Ninjago is from, I think Z-Man did it, and this is back in 2011. Yes, that's considered old at this point. And it has these really cool ninja stars that you will use to place your workers as you collect ninjas. And it's a pretty simple style game. And you are trying to just become the Ninjago, the invisible sword of the ruling family. I really like this game. It's been a while since I played it, but I enjoy it. Ninjago.
Number 7.
Number 7 is Gil Havas the Networks. You are running a low-budget television station, and you are trying to put television shows on the air that will earn you the most ratings. And the combination of these cards, you'll put a star out there, combined with a genre, and combined with advertisers that all come together to hopefully earn you points. And the combinations are great. And there's a lot of parody artwork, and it feels like you're running the UHF station from Weird Al's UHF movie. It really feels like that. So I love it just thematically, and it's a pretty solid drafting and engine building game. The Networks, my number 7.
I say, I feel like you just want to be UHF. You don't care about anything else.
What? Why is that a bad thing?
I'm going to go.
I want to drink from the fire hose, Tom.
I really do love that movie. All right. My number 7 is New York Slice, a pizza game. This was a re-implementation of Piece of Cake. And in this one from Bezier Game, you are collecting pizza slices. And a pizza that, for some inexplicable reason, has been divided into 11 pieces. No one knows why. I don't know. It's an incredibly good job by the pizzeria.
A cuttingly good job.
So then one person splits each pizza up into different sections, and then everyone else picks. The person who splits it gets it last. And you're trying to collect different types of pizza slices and get pepperoni. Very simple, but very fun game. And how many good games are there about pizza? Well, there's probably 10. But still, in fact, I've done the top 10 pizza games on the Dice Tower channel.
Really?
But still, yeah, it was one of those weeks where I was like, what? I'm bored. I'm hungry for some pizza.
I'm hungry.
I'm actually hungry for pizza. Right? I'm going to get pizza tomorrow.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm really losing track here. New York Slice.
Number 6.
My number 6 has no connection to food at all. It's number 9, which is number and the numeral 9 with all of the vowels taken out. NMBR 9. It's an abstract stacking game where you players are going to be simultaneously building using these number tiles that are the numerals, but they're shaped in weird ways, and you sort of make a structure out of them as they come up in a random order. And you're trying to score points by getting certain numbers as high as you can. It's neat. It's one of those where everybody's playing simultaneously and getting the same sequence of numbers, but after the second or third turn, everyone is doing totally different things, which is kind of cool. Number 9. Number 6.
Very confusing. My number 9 was number 11 for me, not number 6. So just to clarify, Eric's number 6 was number 9, and my number 9 was number 11. Hang on. Eric's number 9. Eric had number 9 as his number 6. I have number 9 as my number 11. My number 9 is actually Nobody But His Chickens. And Eric's number 9 is Notre Dame.
Thank you for clearing that up. Appreciate that.
I live to serve.
Mm-hmm.
A journey before destination. All right, my number 6 is Newton. Newton is a get a bunch of points game. There's no other way around it. It is a Euro game in which on your turn you will play a card which will give you an action, and then the more symbols of that action you have amongst the cards you played, you can do that action multiple times. Actions require moving people, a guy on a trip, moving apprentices and learning more things, getting more cards. None of that matters theme-wise. You just get points each thing you do.
Huh.
But it's really fun to build up this cool engine and build a nice little bookshelf collection in front of you. You have not played this one, Eric?
I have not. This is one that's passed me by. It released and it was hot, and then I didn't get a chance to play it.
Yeah, I think, I'm not, I'm very cautious, but I swear if you played it, you would just like it.
Okay. I'll look at that, and next time it's at a convention,
right?
I'll give it a whirl.
All right.
Number 5.
I don't really want to talk about my number 5 right now. I don't think it's a good time, so I'm going to put a chip on it and let Tom talk.
Man, we should have more number 5s. Are you sure you don't do the chip first? Okay, anyway, my number 5.
I wasn't even going to say anything.
Yeah. My number 5 is higher on Eric's list because, once again, he picks before me. Stupid.
Number 4.
Number 4, for a list that has very little crossover, I'm amazed that we sync up here with Nations the Dice Game, and neither one of us chose Nations the Nations Game, the big brother.
Nations the Nations Game?
we chose Dice Game. It's just called Nations is the original version, but Nations the Dice Game has this cool system where everybody starts with basic dice, and then as you buy technologies, you swap out those basic dice for more efficient dice in various categories. So you can specialize in trade dice or military dice, and it all flows really well. I like the way it all works out. So Nations, the dice game, is my number 4. I like it better than the Big Brother.
I agree. The Big Brother's good, but it's just way too long, unfortunately. Alrighty. Well, my number 4 is Nations, the dice game, and I agree with Eric.
Number 3.
My number 3 is going to show up on Tom's list, and I'm really looking forward to when he talks about it, because I looked at this paragraph, and it's going to be pretty cool.
My number 3 is No Thanks, which I really, really dislike the name of the game, even though it's accurate, because a good chunk of my gaming career has been spent me asking people if they want to play this, and them thinking it's funny to say no thanks in response.
Yep.
And then I pretend to laugh, and then we play the game correctly by the written rules. I love this game. I love the idea of you take a card or throw a chip on it. This auction style has been used in like maybe 3 or 4 games ever. And it's such a good mechanism.
Yeah.
And it especially, I mean, that's all No Thanks is it just this mechanism. But it works well. It's a great gateway game. It's easily portable. Anybody can understand it. I just love it.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really to add there other than that you should play by the rules that are printed in the rule book. And
as all players should do for all games.
Yes. It's fantastic. It's easy barrier to entry. This is one of those games that you could just introduce to anyone and draw them in so that they will play games forevermore.
That's right. Put it in front of them and they will be forced to play it not only with you, but with people they don't know.
We're just bringing the whole episode together now.
This is like a final episode of Doctor Who. Everything's going to matter at the end.
Bad Wolf is everywhere.
That really did blow my mind, Eric.
Number 2.
Number 2 was Tom's number 5. That is New Frontiers. This is the board game version of Race for the Galaxy, but it also brings in elements of Puerto Rico. The action selection works a little bit differently here. It actually uses a very similar system to Puerto Rico, and I really enjoyed how that all worked together. A lot of the same things from Race for the Galaxy are involved here. The planets work very similarly, but it has sort of a grander scale. You're drawing the planets from a big bag, and they're actual chunky cardboard components. It all works together really well. You feel like you're running an economy as you play New Frontiers. It's why it's my number 2.
Yep, and my number 5. I like it a lot. I don't think it's as good as either game it's based on, Race for the Galaxy or Puerto Rico, but it is a good combo of each of them. And there are some things about it I like a lot. So definitely one to check out for sure. It's a big game, though. Just be warned. I mean, like size-wise, it takes up a lot of space on the table.
It does,
but still lots of fun. My number 2 is Nexus Ops, one of the best troops on a map style game that exists. You know, where you have all these weird aliens fighting each other. This was one of the ones when Avalon Hill rebooted in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. This was one of the games that came out, and I loved it. It promotes attacking. There was no more turtling. You just got in, you accomplished missions. Really fast game. Cool miniatures. This game, unfortunately, should be available for young people today to play, and it is not, unless they spend a lot of money hunting it down. But I still really like it, and it is in the Dice Tower library, so Nexus Ops.
There you go. Yeah, I've enjoyed this, but it wasn't one that I enjoyed enough to put on my list.
And finally, number 1.
Down to my number 1, and this sort of surprised me.
Cult of the New.
I know.
Cult of the New.
As I ranked all this together, I'm like, do I really like this game more than all the others? And that is Nova Luna. This is the Uwe Rosenberg brand new abstract game. In fact, it doesn't even try to have a theme. It doesn't even try. I went looking for flavor text, and there is none. It just, in Nova Luna, you are acquiring tiles. Okay. You're grabbing tiles from like a circular track, and each tile requires a certain amount of time to acquire. And so getting a tile that has a 7 on it is going to move you along this time track, but you might not get another turn for a while. A mechanism that I think works very well in lots of other games.
This sounds like Patchwork.
That part is very similar to Patchwork, but what really works here is that the tiles in Nova Luna have goals on them. Your object is to get rid of all of your chips, and you will place one of your chips every time you complete one of the goals that's on the tiles. And as you place these tiles in a grid in front of you in your tableau, you can achieve these goals. So one of the goals might be have 3 blue tiles next to this tile. And so you could put 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue on 3 of the sides of that tile, but you can also get a string of blue tiles and then get credit for all of those tiles as long as you're touching one of those tiles to the tile with the goal on it. So the way you build and spread out, and every tile you get that helps you achieve a goal also has more goals on it. And it's got this it actually feels a lot like the Reef. Reef from Emerson Matsuuchi, where the things you acquire now are also your goals for the future, and keeping that thing rolling is really cool. Nova Luna, my favorite endgame.
Man, I'm really feeling like left out by not playing this game.
You should play it.
You guys are... alrighty. Well, I'm not gonna...
You should. You have to play it right now. You have to.
I'm actually playing it as we're recording this, Eric.
Play it right now. Don't even tell us your
my number one was Eric's number 3, and that is Near and Far. This was an easy choice for me. I love Near and Far, mostly because Ryan Laukatt's new game is not out yet, but it's coming out soon.
Yeah.
But Near and Far, I love the storytelling aspect of it. You'll notice that I love storytelling in games, and there's a lot of great ones out there. And there are better storytelling games than Near and Far, but there's not many games that are better that have storytelling.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about Near and Far. It has a good story in it, which I like a lot, but it also has a really solid game involved.
Yeah. Very much, I agree totally. This was my number 3. It is a solid area control resource management game in addition to being a fun storytelling. This is one of those where I want to read all of the paragraphs. I want to trigger the story elements, go on those quests and adventures and see what happens. What impressed me so much opening up Near and Far the first time I saw it is how much of a world is inside that box. It's not just the storybook and the map book. There's tons of characters and alternate ways to play, and it just feels like you've got a whole universe inside this box, which is great. And I love the art, I love the stories, and I want to play more Near and Far. My number 3, Tom's number 1.
And that's it. Let's take a look now at the People's Choice. The number 10 for them was The Networks. Number 9 is Nations, not the dice game. Number 8 is Nothing Personal, a game I dare not put on my list, and Eric Jerkily didn't put on his, but I'm just kidding.
It made the short list. I was close. I was like, should I put it on just to make him happy? No.
Number 7's Hiroshima Hex, which if Z had been here would have been his number 1. Number 6 is number 9.
Again?
Wait, I'm confused. Do you want me to explain this again?
No.
Okay, number 5 is New York 1901, one that I considered putting on my list. Number 4 is New York Slice. Number 3 is Notre Dame. And number 2, Near and Far. And number 1 for the people is No Thanks.
Sure, it works for everybody.
Just goes to show you, it really does. Alrighty, folks, well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Like I said, join us on our video channel, where just for those evening chats where we just talk to you. If you want to hang out with people, we're trying to have stuff go up on our channel every day. Go to Facebook, hang out with other people online, find the good stuff. It's there, we promise. And we'll look forward to seeing you all next time. After Mandy and Suzanne next week, hope you enjoyed their podcast, and then we'll be back a week after that. Until then, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 653, was recorded on April 2nd, 2020. Mandy and Suze join you next week, and then in 2 weeks, Tom and I are back in the time machine to look back at our top 10 games from the year 2000. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for spreading the word. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Mandy, Suzanne, and Eric, with production assistance from Roy Cannaday, Mike Delisio, and Rob Seary. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Our race to that gate in the Dungeons & Dragons universe provided by Balderdash. And you can get the latest on everything Dice Tower at Dicetower.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com. Email us at tom@Dicetower.com or eric@Dicetower.com, or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including Board Games Insider, Out of Game, The Broken Meeple, The Game Pit, Rolling Dice and Taking Names, The D6 Generation, Ludology, and Board Game Breakfast at Dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming.
All right, what if number 9 was my number 12? Okay, but what if I had a number 7?
Yeah.
And then number 7, 8, 9.
Ooh. Then you'd only have like a top 6.
So you know that people say 6 was afraid of 7, right?
I have heard
but
that.
Do you know the good thing about 7? Do you know why 7, 8, 9?
You're going to tell me.
I am going to tell you it's because you should have 3 squared meals a day.
Wow.